The journey of destiny. What is really determined? There's something intriguing about destiny. With every step in our lives, it seems ever present, an invisible force guiding us in directions we don't choose. But what is destiny really? Is it a higher force controlling us? Or is it, in the end, us who chart our own path? In the most common sense, destiny is defined as an inevitable sequence of events that cannot be avoided. However, this simple definition fails to capture the complexity and varying interpretations that the concept of destiny has acquired throughout history and philosophy. The idea of destiny spans cultures, religions, and philosophical schools, and while it's an ancient topic, it still raises many doubts and questions. For example, in ancient Greece, the concept of destiny was deeply connected to the Moirai, three sisters who controlled the thread of life for every human being. For the Greeks, destiny wasn't just an abstract idea. It was something very real and concrete, controlled by these mythical figures. Clotho, the eldest of the Moirai, spun the thread of life, while Lachesis determined the length of it, and Atropos cut the thread, symbolizing death. Destiny was then in the hands of these three sisters who could not be challenged or avoided. Once the thread of life was spun, there was no changing what was to come. For other cultures, destiny is equally seen as something unchangeable. In ancient Egypt, for example, it was believed that a person's destiny was determined by the gods at the moment of birth. Every human being had a purpose, and this purpose was written in the cosmos, such that it couldn't be altered. In this context, destiny was something fixed, given by a higher force, and humans were merely pawns in a grand divine game. However, not all traditions or philosophies adopt a deterministic view of destiny. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the greatest figures of existentialism, proposed a radically different approach. For Sartre, destiny is not an external force controlling us. On the contrary, he believed that we humans are completely free to choose and shape our own destiny. Sartre argued that human freedom is absolute and inescapable, and that by making our choices, we are actually creating our essence. He claimed that existence precedes essence, meaning that a human is born without a predetermined nature, and it is through their choices that they define themselves. This idea of absolute freedom can be unsettling. For Sartre, we are condemned to be free. This means we are entirely responsible for our choices, and that, at the same time, the lack of a predefined essence generates enormous existential angst. If you choose something, there's no one else to blame. You are solely responsible for your choices and, consequently, for your own existence. In this sense, for Sartre, destiny is a concept that doesn't exist outside of us, and in reality, we create our destiny through our decisions. But do we really have that much control over our destiny? There are factors beyond our reach that lead us to reflect on the role of luck, chance, and the context in which we are born. Stoicism, for instance, offers a different view, one more focused on accepting destiny. The Stoic philosophy, which originated in Athens with Zeno of Citium, teaches that we should live according to nature and accept what we cannot change. The Stoics believe that there is a logos, a universal reason that governs the universe. This logos is a rational and divine principle that brings order to chaos and, for the Stoics, lies behind all occurrences in the world. Everything that happens follows a chain of causes and effects, inevitably. Thus, the Stoics teach us to cultivate virtue, wisdom, and tranquility in the face of what we cannot control, accepting events as part of a larger plan that may not be fully understood. The famous phrase Amor Fati, which means love of fate, is a Stoic concept that encourages complete acceptance of what happens to us. It suggests that we should embrace all experiences in life, both good and bad, as essential parts of our destiny. By loving fate, one not only accepts the hardships and challenges, but also learns to see beauty and purpose even in the darkest moments. However, this doesn't mean that the Stoics advocate a life of resignation. They argue that we should focus on what's within our control, our attitudes, our reactions, and our choices, What's beyond our control must be accepted with serenity. It's a philosophy of balance, teaching us to understand our limitations while seizing the opportunities within what we can change. The question of destiny, then, places us before a paradox. Are we ultimately just following a sequence of events that were predestined? Or can our choices really alter the course of our history? Is there a certain freedom within this destiny? Or are we merely playing a role in a grand theater of life? Let's consider a concrete example. Imagine you're about to make an important choice. For example, deciding which career to pursue. Many people believe that their choices are completely free and that the future entirely depends on what they decide now. However, many factors are at play. The environment in which you grew up, your family influences, your opportunities, your limitations, and even luck or chance. It's possible that, without the education you received or without the encounters and opportunities that arose along your path, you wouldn't have the options you have today. This is a point that the Stoic philosophers recognize. Even in a universe governed by the logos, life follows a pattern that we can't fully comprehend, and therefore, we must accept what's beyond us. Yet, within this acceptance, there's also the possibility of acting wisely, making choices that allow us to live a virtuous life. That's why the Stoic view offers comfort. It suggests that, regardless of the difficulties or pains we face, we must trust that everything has a purpose, even if we are far from understanding it. It may be difficult, no doubt. Losing someone we love, going through inexplicable suffering, may seem cruel and meaningless. But for the Stoics, the idea is that everything is part of a larger cycle, one that we must learn to embrace instead of resist. The Stoic view also suggests that true freedom doesn't come from trying to control what we cannot, but from the wisdom of knowing what is within our reach. When we accept that we cannot control all circumstances, but that we can control our attitudes toward them, we find inner peace that allows us to live more lightly. However, destiny often seems cruel. Some people are born into difficult conditions, face unbearable challenges, or die very young, never having had the chance to fully experience life. How can we reconcile this reality with the idea that destiny has a greater purpose? The answer isn't simple. Often, suffering and pain seem utterly senseless. But on some level, we may begin to realize that, though destiny isn't always understandable, it could be a fundamental part of the human soul's journey. The truth is, the concept of destiny challenges us to reconsider our own existence. What do we do with the life we are given? What choices do we make in the face of the circumstances presented to us? Destiny, in its complexity, is beyond any simple explanation, but how we respond to it, with acceptance, courage, or resistance, is indeed what defines us. Reflection on destiny leads us to understand that, even though we can't control every aspect of life, we somehow have the ability to shape the way we live our journey. Destiny may not be something we can control, but it is something we can learn to embrace and understand along the way. The concept of destiny is an idea that accompanies us throughout our lives, challenging our understanding and shaping our reactions in the face of adversity. Every person, in some way, tries to make sense of what happens around them, and destiny often seems to offer an explanation. But what is destiny, and how does it relate to our choices? Are we free to decide our future, or are we already destined for something we cannot alter? The definition of destiny, in simple terms, can be described as a succession of events that cannot be avoided. However, when we look at the concept from a deeper perspective, it becomes something much more complex and subjective. We often hear that destiny is something we cannot control, something that appears before us as a path we must follow, regardless of our actions. But are we really being guided by an uncontrollable destiny? Or is it, in fact, us who shape the circumstances that we eventually call destiny? In history, different cultures and philosophies have developed their own explanations for destiny and its role in human life. The concept of destiny has varied widely between civilizations, with some believing it is predetermined, while others argue that humans have the ability to create their own path. The Egyptians, for example, believed that a person's destiny was decided at birth. To them, the gods assigned meaning to each individual's life, and this meaning was that person's destiny. In the Egyptian view, destiny was therefore immutable, and no one could escape it. This view carried the idea that life was a cycle determined by divine power, and any attempt to challenge that destiny was seen as an affront to the gods. On the other hand, in ancient Greece, philosophers took a different approach. The Greeks believed in the concept of destiny, but not in the same way as the Egyptians. They saw destiny as something intertwined with the actions of the Moirai, three sisters who controlled the thread of life. Each one had a specific role. Clotho spun the thread, Lachesis measured its length, and Atropos cut the thread at the moment of death. This concept, though mystical, offered the idea that destiny was something that could not be changed, but was part of a cycle controlled by the Moirai. Even though a person had the freedom to make choices, destiny was still a force acting upon them, deciding the moment of their death and the way their life unfolded. Therefore, destiny is an idea that has always remained a powerful force, though not always seen as something we can understand. For many, destiny is a way to explain the inexplicable, to justify events that seem beyond human control. But is destiny really that rigid? Or is it a construct we create to give meaning to our existence? Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre questioned this idea. Sartre, a French existentialist, defended the idea that humans are free to create their own destiny. For him, the concept of destiny, as something imposed externally, was a form of bad faith that people use to escape existential angst. In his view, there is no predetermined destiny. It is we who, through our choices, define who we are and what we become. Each decision we make leads us down a specific path, and we are responsible for our existence and actions. Sartre believed that this freedom of choice, though frightening, is essential for building our essence. By deciding, we shape our lives and are consequently responsible for what we become. This means there are no excuses for failures or successes, as they are all the results of our own choices. This view of destiny as a personal construct challenges the idea that we are predestined for something, placing the weight of responsibility on the individual's shoulders. However, a more balanced approach to destiny can be found in Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and which, unlike Sartre's existentialism, argues that destiny is largely an immutable force that we must learn to accept. For the Stoics, like the Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius, the concept of destiny was closely tied to the logos, a universal reason that governed the universe. In this view, destiny is an inevitable sequence of causes and effects, something that happens in perfect order and cannot be avoided. The Stoics believed that, while we could not control external events, we could control how we reacted to them. In other words, while destiny may be inevitable, our freedom lies in how we face the challenges it presents. Acceptance of what we cannot change, the attempt to control our emotions and actions in the face of events, is what allows us to live with serenity and wisdom, regardless of what destiny holds in store for us. This idea of accepting destiny as it is, without resisting what is beyond our control, is what can bring us a sense of peace. The concept of Amor Fati, or love of fate, is central to Stoic thought and suggests that we must learn to love and accept everything that happens to us, whether good or bad. This doesn't mean passive resignation, but an understanding that the universe works according to laws we cannot fully comprehend. True freedom, therefore, lies in how we respond to these circumstances. However, there's always the question of suffering and inequality when we speak of destiny. Why, in a world where everything seems governed by universal laws, are some people born into extreme poverty and others into privileged families? Why are some lives marked by suffering from the start, while others seem destined for success? The perception of destiny as something unchangeable can seem unfair, especially when we see the pain and tragedy that afflicts some people. In many cultures, this inequality is seen as part of a larger plan, something beyond human comprehension. However, this view can be painful, as it forces us to accept that there are things we cannot change. For the Stoics, wisdom lies in accepting life as it is, without trying to impose our will on what is already happening. This allows us to live more lightly, without getting lost in frustration and despair. Finally, it is important to remember that the concept of destiny is not a final verdict, but a perspective with which we can deal in different ways. Life, although it follows certain patterns and laws, is also full of uncertainties and opportunities. By embracing the idea that not everything is within our control, we can find more freedom to live serenely. Destiny, in the end, is the great mystery of life, and our mission may be not so much to fight against it, but to learn to live with it in the best way possible.